episode 123, From Checkered Past to Checkered Flags. Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast helping micropreneurs find your micro-influencer magic. I'm your host, Candice Rodarty, and this week we have a replay of a classic episode. Last week, we shared my conversation with Melinda Russell, founder of Women's Motorsports Network. Her son, the late Ben Beeler, was one of my very first podcast interviewees. In fact, it's episode 5. It's an intriguing and heartfelt discussion with awesome lessons to be gleaned about selling cars, overcoming adversity, and being a decent human. So much so that 8 years after it was recorded, I'm compelled to share it here again. In the over 150 interviews I've done, less than a handful have moved me to tears. This is one of them. Be sure to stick around to the end and stay groovy, my friends.
This is Leo Harris from Conroe Coffee, your local barista, bringing you the best in Italian coffees. You are now listening to Gratitude Geek with Candice Nesbitt Rodati. Boy, that's a mouthful.
Welcome to episode 5 of Gratitude Geek. I'm your host, Candice Nesbitt Rodarty. Each week I have a fun, insightful, perhaps even controversial conversation with a groovy business owner, witty work-at-home mom, or savvy sales professional. No fuddy-duddies allowed in this studio. My guest today is Ben Beeler of Beeler Motorsports. Join us as Ben takes us on the racetrack of his life, sharing his passion for motor racing, as well as some of the unforeseen pit stops along the way. Find out how one greeting card changed his life, and meet the pit crew that kept him on track. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines, grab onto your bootstraps, and come along for the ride. GratitudeGeek.info, where business is never boring. So Ben, tell me about your business, Beeler Motorsports. Where are you and what do you do?
We are located right in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We have a small car dealership here where we sell inexpensive used cars. And we also have our full-service race shop where we do, well, there's pretty much nothing that we don't do or won't do to any car, whether it's on the street or racetrack. And then I have my send-out cards office here, so it's kind of like 3 businesses kind of combined into one, so I can do everything from right here at the same place.
Awesome. And you also race cars. What's that like?
Oh man, that's undescribable. It's just awesome. It's something that I love to do. It's a lot of work. You know, it's worth it. I just love it. You know, you work on a car 30 or 40 hours a week to actually be able to race it, 20, 30 minutes. So it's got to be something that you love in order to do it.
That's funny. You work on a car for 20 to 40 hours so you can race it for 30 minutes?
Yep, pretty much.
Wow. And do you do tire changes? I mean, how many laps do you do in your race?
Well, the last 2 years, we've just raced around local tracks, and the races are anywhere from 35 to 50 laps. So there's not any pit stops in those. But we also have a new car that we're building right now that's built for a traveling series where we can actually take it all over the country and race it. There's quite a few of those that have a lot of laps. There's a couple even that have 400, and those will obviously have 5 to 7 pit stops.
Wow. So what kind of racing is it? I know there's different kinds. What kind of racing do you do?
Yep, we race circle track, asphalt, late models. The best way to describe it is it's pretty much just like what you see on TV. It's just at like a lower level, I guess. I guess it'd kind of be like a Division II college basketball team compared to like a Division I.
Okay. And how fast do you drive?
It all depends on the track. Obviously, the bigger the track, the faster you go. Most of the tracks around here, the top speed's about 130. Some of the bigger tracks that are, over, down like in Texas where you guys are, or, Florida and Arizona and stuff like that, there's a lot of bigger tracks where we, be probably in the 170, 180 range.
What does it feel like to drive that fast?
Well, it's nothing like, I mean, there's a lot of people that have went 100 miles an hour, like on the highway or something. But going 100 miles on the highway is nothing like going 100 miles an hour on a racetrack. When you're going 100 miles an hour on a racetrack, it seems like you're going 300 miles an hour because you're basically going in a circle almost. And 100 miles an hour just feels so much faster. I mean, you can't think about what you do in a race car. When you start thinking about what you're supposed to do in a race car, when you're in the race car, that's when bad stuff happens. It feels like.
Are you a sci-fi geek?
Am I a what?
A sci-fi geek? I mean, do you?
No.
Do you know? Have you ever watched Star Wars? Do you feel the Force when you're driving?
I love Star Wars, but that's actually the only sci-fi movie I think I like.
Oh, okay. But when you're driving your car, you have to use the Force. Basically, is the way you're describing it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like when I'm in a race car and I'm racing, and like there's an accident in front of me or a wreck in front of me, it's almost like time stops, and I'm in slow motion. It's so hard to describe. I've tried describing this to my mom and some of my friends before, but it's almost like time stops. Even though it's only a split second of time, to me in the car, it feels like 4 or 5 seconds. That's one of the gifts that I have. It just happens, and that's what helps me on the racetrack. It helps me avoid a lot of bad things that a lot of people don't avoid.
Wow. Whew. Okay, so tell me why you got into racing. How'd you get the bug?
I got the bug from my mom, so it's all her fault. She had a friend that raced dirt tracks in Illinois, where we live. I'm originally from Illinois, and she took me to a race, and I was probably 4 and a half years old, and it was my first time ever even seeing that. I don't even think I'd ever watched a race on TV. I basically stood right at the fence the whole night, except for maybe going to the bathroom, and I had dirt flying on me and mud flying on me, and I remember watching those cars fly around there, and I never left that fence. And something inside of me just clicked, and I knew I loved it, and I knew I wanted to do it someday. And that's pretty much what made me fall in love with it. Growing up, nobody in my family or even in my town, raced cars, so I was never able to try it at a young age. And when I graduated high school, I took some of my graduation money that I got, and I actually went and bought a race car without my mom knowing.
Oh, no.
I had it in the garage. I actually had it delivered while she was gone and out of town on vacation. And she came out to the garage one night, was seeing why I was out in the garage, and she saw me there working on the race car, and she slammed the door, and she didn't talk to me or my dad for 2 weeks.
Wow.
The first race, she was obviously there, and she hasn't missed very many. She's probably missed about 5 races my whole life. So she's a big supporter, and it's all her fault. So.
So you've been racing since then?
I started racing in 1996, and there was about a 6-year period from then till now that I didn't race. So I grew up racing dirt tracks, and I was racing on dirt tracks in Illinois and Iowa and Missouri, for the first few years, and then the last 3 years I've tried out asphalt, and I've just been learning this asphalt stuff, which is way different.
Wow. Okay, so I know your journey has been a little bit different than some other people's journeys. Do you want to share a little bit of that, or?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it the short version. I guess you can just ask me whatever you want, but long story short, I went to college, and in college, I was drinking a lot, which was, I guess, the thing to do where I was from anyway. My girlfriend didn't like it. She basically, said you need to stop. So I stopped. Some of my friends smoked marijuana, and I tried it, and I started smoking marijuana. And within a couple weeks, I found myself basically selling marijuana to my friends, and that something happened. I don't know exactly why. And at this point, it really doesn't matter. But I basically took off from there and became a drug dealer. And over the next 7 6 or 7 years, I basically sold drugs, and that's what I did for a job and for my life. I ended up dropping out of college, and I was making a lot of money, and I was caught up in it so bad. There really wasn't. I didn't really ever see a way out.
What what were the consequences? We could go into a movie with this, but the consequences were that you got caught, right?
Well, yep. Fast forward, 7 years. We kind of, I had a partner from Chicago, and
you had a business partner in the drug trade.
Yes, from Chicago, and we kind of felt that we had heat, so to speak. Like we had attention, and they knew who we were or whatever. And I quit. I actually quit and walked away from it. And I had a couple businesses there in Illinois, and I thought, okay, well, I quit and I'm good to go. Well, in September of 2005, the DEA and Secret Service and FBI and U.S. Marshals, they actually came to get me and my partner at the same time. And I was in one part of Illinois, and he was in Chicago, about 3.5 hours away. They came and they arrested me and took me to jail. And when I tried calling him to contact him, because I didn't know that they went to get him, his brother had answered the phone, and his brother told me that my partner had got killed
by the DEA.
Yes, and what happened was when they went to get him, there was a shootout, and there was, a ridiculous amount of shots fired. And I think the report said there was 371 shot fired. It was just my partner, cop. So there was a lot of gunfights, and he got killed. He got shot like 5 or 6 times in the back while he was trying to flee, and that like gave me like a wake up call. It's like, whoa, man, that could have happened to me, and now I'm in jail, and I'm facing prison time by the federal government. That's basically how it ended. And I ended up doing about just over 5 years in federal prison. I learned a lot about, I guess, how the system works, and a lot about myself, and the consequences for what I did.
Wow. Okay, so let's fast forward again. Something happened to you when you were in prison that changed your life.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that story?
Well, I was in federal prison. My girlfriend at the time, something changed in her voice. So like every week or something else would come up, and I was kind of blind to it at first. Once reality struck in, I realized, yeah, she really was leaving me. She was just trying to break it to me in little pieces at a time. And she was actually pregnant at the time with my son. It just crushed me. There's no words to describe how you could feel in a place like that where you are so isolated and so alone. You depend on a letter or a phone call to somebody that you love, somebody that loves you, to kind of help you get through some bad things that go on in prison. It crushed me, and I went through probably a month period of depression where I lost 20 pounds. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I was already a pretty thin guy, so I wasn't doing very good. And my mom's always been a writer, and she's always wrote me letters. But it's hard to just write somebody, it's hard to sit down and get out a piece of paper and a pen and just write, a 2 or 3 page letter and then go mail it. It takes a lot of time. So one day at mail call, they have mail call every day at 4:00. I got a card in the mail, and I opened it up, and it was just a card from the card catalog, from send out cards. And it, I didn't even know it was send out cards at the time. I thought it was just like a Hallmark or something, but it was just a little card, and it had a typed message on the inside. It just made my day.
Wow.
And the next day I got a card, and the next day after that I got a card, and now I'm getting cards with pictures on them. And those cards and the words that my mom had put in those cards, they really saved my life at the time. And that's how, and then she started explaining, what send out cards was and stuff. Just those cards, they kind of, it's hard to describe unless you've been in my shoes and been to where I've been. Those cards uplifted me. They helped me stay positive, and they were funny. They made me laugh. They made me cry.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a big thing that happened to me in my life.
Wow. Talk to me about because you were lucky. You had your mom who was sending you the cards and who was in communication with you, and you have sisters. Were they in constant communication with you when you were in prison?
I'm really lucky, and I'm not even lucky. I'm blessed to have the family that I have. They all supported me. My mom did a lot. My mom did the most. I mean, she wrote and sent me cards more than anybody, but everybody in my family, supported me. My older sister, me and her, obviously, only 2 years apart, and she was a couple years older than me in high school, and we had a lot of the same friends and hung out. So me and her were closer than my younger sisters just because of our ages. My younger sisters were actually affected by me going to prison because they were so young, and they were at in grade school and junior high at the time that I was doing all my bad things. And people knew, and it actually really, really embarrassed my younger sisters. My youngest sister, Brianne, it hurt her it hurt her a lot, and she still has hurt in it today. I can tell and feel it sometimes, just when we talk. I wasn't a brother to her when she needed a big brother.
Let's try to move the emotions into a different direction. I want to talk to you about people who are in prison who don't have the family support that you had. Is there? Do you think that it affects how people react, or their opportunities and the path that they can take to get out? I mean, what is your take on that?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's one of those places where you have to adapt, and you have a lot less choices in prison than you do out here, as far as making the right decision and doing the right things and hanging out with the right people. It's not a place that you go to get rehabilitated. I don't care what anybody says, what the government says, what the news say. It doesn't happen. The only way you can rehabilitate yourself or change by going to prison is if you do it yourself.
Okay.
There are programs and classes and stuff like that, but they don't make you take them. You have to want to do it yourself. I'm going to say, at least in federal prison, 60 to 70% of the people in there don't have a support system. They don't have a support system at home, a good support system. And out of the other 30%, probably only 3% of them have a really good support system like I did.
Yeah.
That always tries to to tell you to do the right thing and stays positive. And so I was super, super, super blessed to have the family that I did. Without them, I'd be back in there already. I mean, they try to make it so hard in there, and when you get out, that a lot of people just give up and they go back to selling drugs or robbing banks or doing whatever got them in trouble in the first place, and then they end up going back to prison, and a lot of them spend the rest of their lives there.
What do you think is the best way to stay out of prison again? If you were to give advice to somebody who was 25 years old and just got caught and was facing spending the next 5-10 years in prison, what would you tell him?
Yeah, I would tell him that the number one thing is you have to learn not to put yourself in the position where you could make that bad decision. And by that I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I have friends, a couple friends, that they never stopped selling drugs, and a couple of them probably still do today. I'm not friends with them on Facebook. I've talked to them maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years, because I was close with them and their families. But I'll never go have dinner with them. I'll never go to a bar and have a drink with them. I won't put myself in the position for the conversation to come up. Hey, let's do this one more time or something like that. I've learned to avoid those situations so I don't have to make or not make that decision. There have been times where I have been in that position since I've been out and been home just because of circumstance, and I've made the right decision.
Yeah.
But by avoiding being in that position every day, it helped me. And the government doesn't make it easy. They put you back in the position, environment that you were in that got you in trouble in the first place. So you have to really make up your mind before you come home, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and you got to have a plan, and you got to follow through with it.
Okay, let's fast forward to 2012.
Okay.
Detroit Treat 'em Right seminar. Tell me about it. First of all, what is a Treat 'em Right seminar, and what happened to you at it?
Well, a Treat 'em Right seminar is, to me, it's a party.
I've been to one. It's a party.
Yeah, it's a send out cards event that has a lot of motivational speaking and self development and training. It's where the best of the best in send out cards, go to a certain region, and everybody from that region goes, and it's just a good time. What happened was when I got out of prison, I got back in the car business, and I was selling cars, and I knew what send out cards was, obviously, because my mom sent me 300 cards in 280 days or whatever. And she's like, you should really use this for your business. Let's try it. So I started sending thank you cards to people that bought cars from me and brownies. And before I knew it, they were sending me people to buy cars.
Wow.
And I went from being an average car salesman to being the number one salesman in the dealership, and then taking a job at another dealership as a manager, and so on and so forth. So I saw the business
Let's just reiterate. You became the number one salesperson because you sent a box of brownies and a thank you card.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate that because it's a point that a lot of people don't get. Okay, so then you became a manager at another dealer.
Yep, and I would take a picture. Sometimes I would take a picture of them by their car. Sometimes I would take a picture of them leaving the dealership in their car, and they wouldn't even know it. And they'd get a card, and on the front of the card it'd be a picture of their car driving off with them in it. Mm-hmm. 90, I think, out of I don't know how many hundreds of cards I sent to people that bought cars from me, but there was probably 3 or 4 that never called me and said thank you. Wow, that was awesome. So yeah, they sent me a lot of friends and family, and they bought cars from me, and it took me to being number one car salesman and getting a good job at another dealership as a manager. So I used it for my business, not as a business. So I knew the power of it. Mm-hmm. But my mom and Gail, they always. And
Gail is your mom's friend, your mom.
Yeah, my mom's best friend. That's how my mom got introduced to send out cards. They always, they're big into send out cards, and they always wanted me to go do this and check this out. To me, it was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna do that. Finally, my mom's like, you're gonna go to the Treat 'em Right in Detroit with me, and I'm like, okay, when is it? And my mom doesn't ask a whole lot, and she doesn't tell me to do a whole lot of things really. But when she does, I've learned that I better do it. So we went to the Detroit Treat 'em Right, and I loved it. And I saw Cody Bateman. I heard him talk. I decided that I wanted to do this as a business.
And Cody Bateman is the founder of Send Out Cards.
Yep, founder and CEO of Send Out Cards.
Was there something in particular that he said during the Treat 'em Right that turned the I want to do this as a business switch on?
Well, there wasn't anything that he didn't say that I didn't love. But he gave his speech where he said you can be from Yale or jail, and he was looking right at me when he said it.
Wow. I can imagine. So the first time I ever saw you, you were standing on stage with Cody wearing your race car outfit. And it really made a huge impression on the several hundred people that were in the audience. So do you think you've come a long way, baby?
Yes. When we had our big send-out card event here in this past summer in Kalamazoo, we were at dinner one night, and Todd Falcone. We were at dinner one night with Todd Falcone, and he had known a little bit about my mom and Gail's story, but he didn't know much about mine. So he was asking me questions, and I was telling him, and he actually made the comment, "You should write a book, and you should call it From Checkered Past to Checkered Flags."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, I love it. So I've kind of taken that phrase, given all the credit to Todd for coming up with it, but I've taken that phrase, and it describes kind of my journey. I definitely have a checkered past, and now it's checkered flags, and yeah, so.
Wow. So what's it like to have one-on-one time with one of the world's best network marketing trainers, Todd Falcone? What's that like?
It's a riot. Todd Falcone, he's just Todd Falcone.
Yeah.
He's super funny. He's super smart, and probably my number one thing that I love about him is that he doesn't keep anything back. He will tell you exactly how it is, whether it hurts your feelings or not. That's obviously not ever his intent, but he's just 100% true. He's just a great guy, and I'm actually trying to. He's actually getting ready to do like a training tour. We're trying to get him to come up to Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids. I sent him a message yesterday and was like, dude, I want to go to like 4 or 5 of them and be your personal assistant. You don't even have to pay me. I just want to learn from him. So that's how good he is. I mean, yeah. I want to learn from him. But yeah, he's awesome.
Wow. So back to Treat 'em Rights. Do you recommend going to the Treat 'em Right seminar just once or more than once? What do you think?
Go to as many as you can.
Like everyone that's available?
Yes. Yeah. If you can afford to do that and to travel, then yes, I would definitely 100% recommend it. Events drive business. Anybody in any network marketing company knows that. Our Treat 'em Rights are awesome because there's always something different about each one. Our company's constantly changing and progressing, and now that I can freely travel anywhere that I want to go, I'm actually going to the one in Vegas this weekend. I'm signed up for the one in Knoxville. I plan on hitting every one. The only one I'm not sure about is Australia. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford that one.
But 2 weeks ago, I interviewed the only female to fish on the Great Barrier Reef, and she lives in Australia.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a fun interview. Okay, so if you were to give advice to somebody who wanted to start pursuing their passion the way that you do, what would you tell them?
The number one thing is never give up, but that kind of ties into you got to do what you love, or get to the point where you can do what you love. I love racing, I love working on cars, and I love selling cars. That's why I do the Beeler Motorsports part of it, is because those are things that I love to do. The send out card, I love to do that because I'm helping people teach other people how to show gratitude, and how just one card can change their life. My mom had a card business actually. It wasn't send out cards. It was basically she would do them from her house for businesses, and send out cards, and that's how she met Gail. She sent Gail a card trying to get Gail to be one of her clients, and the card was in a red envelope. Gail opened the card up, read it, and just threw it away. Because, well, why would I use that when I have send out cards?
Yeah.
Send out cards is the best. Well, something clicked in Gail's mind to reach into that trash can and pull that envelope out of the trash can and call my mom.
She was prompted.
Exactly. And she followed that prompting, and she called my mom, and they had coffee or lunch or whatever. Gail was halfway through a send-out cards. My mom signed up immediately as a distributor. My mom kind of used it a little bit and kind of, forgot about it. And her and Gail stayed in touch, and they became friends. And Gail told my mom, you should, why don't you send your son in prison some cards? That changed my mom's life.
I bet.
That changed my life. That changed Gail's life. that changed my old cellmate's life, Vito, which a lot of people know that name. And that was all from one card.
Just one card made that much of a difference. It's like the pebble that you throw into the lake.
$1.06.
And it didn't even have, that first card didn't even have a photo or anything in it. It was just a...
It had a frog on the front.
Wow, that is such a remarkable story. Okay, we haven't gotten into the second and third tips.
Okay.
What else? What other advice would you give?
Well, my motto is time kills deals. I have it on every one of my race cars. I have even T-shirts printed up, but I actually developed that little saying and kind of implemented it. Being in the car business, time kills deals. You got to sell the car while they're here. Most of them aren't going to come back if you let them leave.
Yeah.
And I've kind of looked at how that time kills deals in all other aspects of my life. You have a prompting, you got to act on it. You can't put it off. Time kills deals. You have a prompting to send somebody a card, you need to act on it. You can't put it off for a week or two because then you might forget. And you had that prompting at the time for a reason, a reason that none of us will ever know. So that's my number 2. Is don't procrastinate. Time kills deals. I procrastinate still. I'm not perfect, far from it by any means, but I try to implement that as much as possible in all areas of my life. My wife asked me to do something at home, I try to do it immediately just so it gets done.
Wow. Okay, number 3.
Number 3. Never give up.
Okay. So you have a family, you've got young kids. How do you juggle working and your family and all the other things? You've got 3 businesses, your family. How do you juggle it all?
I guess the biggest part of it is having pretty much all 3 of my businesses here at one place. I can sell the cars, I can work on cars, I can work on the race cars, I can walk into my office and send a couple cards and do some send out card work. I can do it all from one place. And then I can obviously do send out cards, from anywhere. That's one of the biggest things that allows me to do what I love. The biggest thing, it has to be, my support system. My wife supports everything that I do with send out cards and Beeler Motorsports, and she's a part of it. So that makes it a lot easier. In the winter, I try to spend, I try to get home by 5 or 6 every night. On her days off, I try to, spend a couple hours during the day, with her and the kids and stuff. Because in the summer, my schedule's pretty much, I'm at the shop at 6 in the morning and I work Beeler Motorsports and the send out cards till 3 or 4. And then from 4 to 10 o'clock at night, we're working on race cars. So in the summer, 7 days a week, I pretty much am home to sleep and shower, and that's about it. So it's a pretty strenuous schedule, but I love it, and I love going a million miles an hour. It's fun.
Yeah. Or 180 miles an hour.
Yep, 180 is fun too.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, so last question. Who do you appreciate?
I appreciate everyone. I really, really appreciate, God first and foremost, and then, my family. And, by the word family, I don't mean just my blood. I mean, my close friends, my send out card friends. We're all family in this world together. And what we're trying to do is to spread that love through the world and change the world one card at a time. I appreciate everyone all in different ways, and yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a good. I believe that the more you appreciate, the more you have to appreciate. So you must have a lot to appreciate. It has been an exhilarating ride. I feel like I just watched an action film. So,
yeah, I really need to write. There's a lot. I mean, we could have talked for 4 or 5 hours telling you my story. One of the things that I really need to do is write a book, and I'm actually in the preliminary process of doing some research on that, and hopefully within the next year I'll actually have one.
Wow. So maybe somebody will hear this podcast and want to contact you about being your ghostwriter.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. Because, it would be a lot easier just to talk into a recorder and then let somebody transcribe it into a bestseller, New York Times bestseller.
Exactly. I would love to do that. So if you know anybody, send them my way.
All right. Leave a comment in the show notes if you want to be Ben Beeler's ghostwriter. Awesome.
Awesome.
I appreciate you, Ben. This has been a lot of fun. I don't know about you, but I feel like I just did 30 laps around the motorway going 180 miles an hour. Your actions, however small, can make a giant ripple in the pond of life. You might never know what effect your actions have, so just keep tossing those pebbles of kindness and gratitude into your pond and watch your ripples grow. Candice Rodarty, GratitudeGeek.info.
We can make it better than before. I know we can make it easier than they can. We can make it better than before. Some things can't be ignored. Centuries of war and peace, we can live without this division. Centuries of war and peace, it's one or the other. Make your decision. What are we all waiting for? What we see is not what it seems. What are we all waiting for? It's the truth, a dream.